The unseen love. Logan Bennett, a man who had everything, stood at the peak of his success, untouched by the worries of ordinary people. His days were filled with meetings, business deals, and the kind of luxury that most could only dream of. But despite all the wealth and power at his disposal, something in the world always seemed to feel off to him. He had worked his entire life to climb the corporate ladder, but the more he achieved, the more he realized that there was a void in his heart, a void he hadn't even recognized until this moment. It was a typical afternoon when Logan walked out of his office and headed down the busy city street. The sun was beginning its descent, casting a warm golden hue on everything it touched. The streets were bustling with people, their hurried steps echoing the pulse of the city. Yet, despite the familiar hum of urban life, something caught Logan's attention. As he walked past a small corner by an old bakery, he noticed a woman sitting on the cold concrete. The woman, in her filthy clothes and disheveled hair, was barely recognizable. Her once beautiful face, marred by dirt and exhaustion, carried the weight of countless struggles. But what struck him even more was the sight of the two small children beside her, twin girls, no more than 4 years old, their little faces painted with sorrow. One of the girls, her hands trembling, wiped her eyes with dirty hands, sniffling from the cold and hunger. "It's all right, sweetheart. We'll be okay. Someone will help us soon," the woman whispered to her child, her voice trembling with a sense of desperate hope. But there was a crack in her tone, an unmistakable sign that even hope had begun to fade. Logan froze. His heart, usually hardened by years of ruthless business decisions, suddenly clenched in his chest. He couldn't explain why, but there was something in the way she spoke to her children, the gentle tenderness in her voice, that struck him deep within. And then, it hit him. That face. Despite the years that had passed, despite the toll life had taken on her, he knew exactly who she was. It was Olivia Carter, the girl he had once admired from a distance, the one who had captured his heart when they were both younger. She had been the epitome of beauty and grace, a vision of hope and promise in his youth. But now, she was a far cry from the girl he had known. Logan couldn't comprehend how life had brought her to this point. How had she ended up here, on the cold streets with 2 young children, begging for a life she had once deserved? "Olivia?" Logan called softly, his voice filled with disbelief. Olivia's head snapped up, her eyes wide with shock. When their gazes met, there was a moment, a long, pregnant silence, where neither of them spoke. The world around them seemed to disappear, leaving only the two of them frozen in time. And for that moment, the distance of years, of everything that had happened in between, seemed irrelevant. Her eyes darted from his face to the ground, as if she couldn't bring herself to meet his gaze for too long. "Logan," she whispered, the sound barely audible above the noise of the passing traffic. Logan's breath caught in his throat. He had never imagined seeing Olivia like this. The years had been cruel to her, but they hadn't erased the image of her from his mind. The girl he had once loved, though she never truly knew it, was sitting before him in a world far removed from the one he had imagined for her. For a moment, neither of them moved. The air between them was thick with unsaid words, old emotions, and memories of a time when they had both been someone different. But Logan could see the stark contrast now. The Olivia he had known was full of life, laughter, and ambition. Now, her face was etched with pain, her eyes hollowed out by years of hardship. The woman in front of him wasn't just a stranger, she was someone who had been lost, someone who had fallen through the cracks of the world they once shared. "Olivia, what happened to you?" Logan asked, his voice filled with concern and confusion. Olivia looked away, her face momentarily softening with an expression of defeat. She clutched her daughters tighter, as if to shield them from the world. "I'm fine," she muttered, her voice almost too quiet to hear. We're fine." But there was no conviction in her words. Logan's heart twisted at the sight of her trying to hold on to whatever dignity she had left. "Olivia, this isn't fine. Look at you. "Look at them," Logan said, pointing gently toward the two girls who were now looking up at him with wide, unsure eyes. "I can't just walk away from this." For a brief moment, Olivia seemed to reconsider. She glanced down at her daughters, her fingers tightening around them. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, and Logan could see the pain in her gaze. The mother in her was fighting to hold on to whatever little strength she had left. She had never imagined a life like this, begging on the streets, but here she was, with nothing but the remnants of her past. "Please," Olivia said softly, her voice breaking. "Just go. Don't look at us." But Logan was already shaking his head, his jaw set with determination. He had never been one to walk away from anything. Not when there was a chance to change it. "No," he said firmly. "You're not doing this alone anymore. Come with me. I won't leave you here. Not like this." Olivia didn't respond at first. She just stared at him, her eyes filled with disbelief, as if the offer of help was something she couldn't grasp. She had been alone for so long, and in her mind, no one had ever truly cared enough to help her. But here Logan was, standing before her, offering a lifeline when she had long given up on receiving one. For a few long seconds, the world seemed to slow down. Olivia's heart raced as she stared at him, her body tense and unwilling to let go of her pride. She wasn't sure if she could trust him, not after everything. But at that moment, the sight of her daughters, one of them still crying, overcame her hesitation. She couldn't do this to them. Not anymore. With a sigh that felt like it came from deep within her soul, Olivia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "Okay," she whispered, almost too quietly for Logan to hear. "Take us away from here." And just like that, the course of their lives was forever changed. The ride to Logan's mansion was a blur of passing streetlights, the faint hum of the engine, and the weight of the past pressing down on Olivia's shoulders. She sat in the back seat, clutching her daughters tightly as they drifted in and out of sleep, exhausted by the day's hardships. Logan glanced at her through the rearview mirror, his heart heavy with unspoken thoughts. What had happened to Olivia? Why had she ended up here? He couldn't stop thinking about it, but for now, he knew the only thing that mattered was getting her and her girls to safety. As the car turned into the private road leading to the Bennett mansion, Olivia's gaze shifted to the window, her face pressed against the cool glass. She couldn't bring herself to look at Logan. She had no idea what to expect from this offer of help, but one thing was clear, she had no other choice. Logan, on the other hand, could only think of one thing: he had found her again. And this time, he wasn't going to let her slip away. The weight of silence. The mansion loomed ahead as the car turned off the busy streets and into the serene, private road leading to the Bennett estate. It was a place so different from the life Olivia had been living, a stark contrast to the cold streets where she had begged for scraps and shelter. The towering gates of the mansion opened with a slow, mechanical hum, revealing the perfectly manicured lawns and grand structure that stood like a beacon of privilege and power. Logan's eyes flickered to Olivia through the rearview mirror. She sat there, her eyes fixed firmly out of the window, her face expressionless, as though the grandeur around her was foreign, even foreign to the idea of receiving such kindness. She clutched her daughters, who were now barely conscious from exhaustion. One had her head nestled in her mother's lap, her small, dirt-covered hands curled into fists. The other had her face pressed against the window, her eyes fluttering with sleep, unaware of the luxury and warmth they were entering. As they drove through the private estate, the weight of Olivia's silence became palpable. The mansion had always been a symbol of everything Logan had achieved, a product of his years of grueling work and sacrifice. It was a place that was designed to impress, to convey success. But to Olivia, it must have felt like an alien world. The last time she had seen anything like this, it had been in her dreams, when she was a carefree young woman. Now, it seemed like a distant, unreachable fantasy. When the car finally came to a halt in front of the mansion, Logan was the first to step out,
his polished shoes crunching against the gravel driveway. He moved quickly to the back, opening the door for Olivia. He could sense her reluctance, the hesitation in the way she clutched her daughters, her eyes darting from the mansion to the dark, unfamiliar road behind her. She was unsure of everything. Unsure of whether she belonged here, unsure of whether this was even real. "Come on," Logan said softly, holding out his hand. "You're safe here. I promise." Olivia hesitated for a moment before stepping out of the car, but she didn't take his hand. Instead, she walked slowly toward the entrance, her steps heavy as if the weight of her past was pressing down on her shoulders with each movement. Logan followed her silently, knowing that words were not needed at this moment. All she needed was time. Inside the mansion, everything was as it had always been, grand, immaculately designed, and untouched by the hardships of life. The lights were soft and warm, casting a golden glow across the marble floors and elegant furnishings. But none of it seemed to matter to Olivia. As she stepped into the foyer, she paused, looking around at the space with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Her hand instinctively tightened around her daughters, her only comfort. Logan noticed this, his heart sinking at the sight of her. He had known Olivia to be strong, full of life and laughter, someone who could hold her own in any situation. But this version of Olivia was broken. She was lost, a woman who had survived, but at what cost? "Take your time," Logan said softly, breaking the silence. "I'll have everything ready for you. You and the girls can rest here. This is your home now." But Olivia didn't respond. She merely nodded, her eyes still not meeting his. She was clearly overwhelmed, her mind racing with thoughts she was not ready to share. Logan could see the struggle on her face, the internal battle of whether to trust him, whether to trust anyone again. "Thank you," she said after a long pause, her voice so quiet that Logan almost didn't hear her. "But I'm not sure I belong here." Logan's eyes softened. "You belong here more than anyone I know," he said firmly. "And you'll see that. You and your daughters will be taken care of. No one is going to hurt you here." Olivia remained silent, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Maybe it was hope, or maybe it was simply exhaustion. But Logan knew that she wasn't ready to open up yet. He didn't expect her to. He knew it would take time for her to shed the armor she had built around herself after all these years of suffering. He led her and the girls to the guest wing, where a large, comfortable suite had been prepared for them.
Olivia looked around at the room, the soft, luxurious bed, the pristine bathroom, and the plush carpet under her feet. Everything felt so alien to her. She had never imagined a life like this, one where comfort and warmth were available at every turn. As Olivia set her daughters down on the bed, the smallest one immediately curled up in her arms, snuggling into the softness of the pillow as though she had never known such comfort. The other daughter lay beside them, her tiny fingers clinging to Olivia's sleeve, too tired to stay awake for much longer. Olivia sat there, watching them. Her chest tightened as she looked at her daughters, her heart filled with a cocktail of emotions. She had always protected them, but now she felt powerless, unsure of what kind of future she could provide for them. Logan watched her quietly from the doorway, waiting for her to speak. He knew the pain she carried wasn't just about the present, it was about the years of struggle, the years of fighting to survive, to find a way out of the mess that life had thrown her into. And though he wanted to be the one to fix it all, he knew that wasn't possible. Olivia had to find her own way, but maybe, just maybe, he could help her see that the world wasn't as cruel as she believed. "I can't stay here," Olivia whispered, more to herself than to Logan. "Not in this place. I don't belong here." Logan stepped into the room, his gaze steady and reassuring. "You do belong here, Olivia. You and your daughters deserve to have peace. You deserve to heal." She looked at him then, her eyes meeting his for the first time since they had arrived. The vulnerability in her gaze was raw, unguarded. "I'm not sure I can believe that," she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. I've lost everything. I don't know how to start over. Logan moved closer, his tone soft but resolute. Starting over doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means building something new, one small step at a time. You don't have to do it alone. Olivia stared at him for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. She had been alone for so long, trying to survive on her own terms, trying to protect her daughters without asking for help. But here, in this moment, she realized that maybe it was time to let someone in. Maybe it was time to accept that she didn't have to carry the burden alone. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at Logan, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she allowed herself to believe that there was a possibility for something better. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Logan smiled gently, his heart swelling with empathy. "You're welcome. But you don't have to thank me. You're here because you deserve to be." And as the night fell quietly over the mansion, Olivia sat there, her daughters asleep in her arms, feeling a warmth she had long forgotten.
It wasn't the warmth of luxury or opulence, but the warmth of being cared for, the warmth of hope beginning to stir once again. It was the beginning of a new chapter, though Olivia couldn't see it yet. For now, she was safe. And that, for the moment, was enough. The unraveling. The days that followed were filled with silence and subtle shifts. Olivia had accepted Logan's offer, but the weight of her past was heavy on her shoulders. She moved through the mansion with the kind of caution one might expect from someone who had spent years in a constant state of fear and survival. Every sound in the house, every kind gesture from Logan, was met with hesitation. She had spent so long building walls around her heart that it felt impossible to tear them down. Logan, for his part, never pushed her. He understood that healing wasn't something that could be rushed. He let her take her time, allowing the rhythms of the house to soothe her, though it was clear she was still battling an internal war. He had seen this before, though never this personally. He knew what it was like to hide behind success, behind the illusion of control. Olivia was doing the same thing, but her armor was built out of struggle and hardship, rather than ambition and wealth. One evening, after dinner, Logan found Olivia sitting in the large library, a room that overlooked the estate's vast garden. The golden evening light filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Olivia was staring out at the garden, her eyes distant. She had been like this for days, quiet, lost in her thoughts. Logan approached slowly, as though approaching someone who might shatter with the wrong move. "Olivia," he said softly, his voice breaking the stillness of the room. "How are you feeling?" Olivia didn't immediately answer. Instead, she reached out to touch a book on the shelf, her fingers tracing the smooth leather cover absent-mindedly. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice betrayed the lie. "I'm just thinking." Logan leaned against the doorframe, watching her. He had learned to read the signs of someone in pain, but Olivia's was a different kind of suffering. It was a quiet, unspoken hurt, a lifetime of scars that no amount of luxury could erase. "About what?" he asked gently, his voice filled with genuine concern. She finally looked at him, and Logan could see the turmoil in her eyes. "I don't know," she whispered. "I keep thinking about how I ended up here. How I ended up on the streets with my girls, begging for scraps. What happened to me, Logan?" The question hit Logan like a punch to the gut. He had known Olivia in her prime, a radiant young woman with a future that seemed as limitless as her charm. To see her now, broken and defeated, was like watching a once beautiful painting fading to dust. "Life happens," Logan said quietly. "Sometimes, it's not what we expect. But that doesn't mean it's the end."
"You've been through more than most people could handle, Olivia. And now, you're here. With your girls. Safe." But Olivia shook her head, the pain in her eyes deepening. "Safe," she repeated, her voice laced with disbelief. "I don't feel safe. I don't feel like I belong anywhere. Not here. Not in my old life. I'm just lost." Logan took a deep breath, moving closer to her. You're not lost. You're just starting over. You've been given a second chance, Olivia. And second chances don't come easily. But they're worth it. You're worth it. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to start over, she said, her voice cracking. I don't know how to fix everything that's broken inside me. I don't know how to be the woman I used to be, or the mother I want to be for my girls. Logan took a step closer and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't have to fix everything right now. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to take it one step at a time. I'm not asking you to be the woman you were, Olivia. I'm asking you to be who you are now. And that's enough. Olivia closed her eyes, allowing the words to wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to feel something other than fear. There was a flicker of hope, small and fragile, but it was there. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. And maybe, just maybe, she could learn to believe in it again. Over the next few days, Logan continued to offer Olivia his unwavering support. He encouraged her to take small steps, to interact with the people in the house. He had hired a few domestic staff, people who were kind but discreet, giving Olivia the space to find her way without feeling overwhelmed. Slowly, Olivia started to engage more. She began helping with the girls, taking them outside to play, letting the fresh air fill her lungs and clear her thoughts. But still, her heart carried the weight of uncertainty. One afternoon, after a long walk in the garden, Olivia found herself sitting alone on a bench beneath an old oak tree. The twins were playing nearby, their laughter echoing in the cool breeze, but Olivia felt alone. Even in the mansion, surrounded by safety and comfort, she could not shake the feeling that something was missing. She wanted to be the mother her daughters needed, but she wasn't sure how to be that person anymore. Logan came up behind her, his footsteps soft on the grass. Mind if I join you? Olivia didn't look at him right away, but she didn't turn him away either. I guess I've been sitting here too long, she said, her voice distant. Just thinking. Logan sat down beside her, his gaze following hers as they both watched the girls playing. It's good to think. It's good to let your mind wander. But I hope you're not thinking that you don't belong here. You and your girls are meant to be here. You deserve this. Olivia turned her head to look at him. I'm not sure I deserve anything anymore, Logan. I've made so many mistakes, so many bad choices. Logan's eyes softened as he turned to face her. We all make mistakes. We all have things we regret. But that's not what defines us. What matters is what we do next. What matters is how we rise after we've fallen. Olivia took a deep breath, feeling a tear slip down her cheek. I don't know if I can rise, Logan. I don't know how to be strong anymore. Logan gently placed a hand on hers. You don't have to do it alone. And you don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to fall. What matters is that you get up. And you will. I believe in you, Olivia. And I'm not going anywhere. The words were simple, but they were the lifeline Olivia had needed. She had been holding on to her past for so long, believing that it was the only thing that defined her. But now, for the first time in years, she realized that her future didn't have to be dictated by her past. It was hers to shape. As the sun set behind the mansion, casting a soft, golden glow across the land, Olivia let herself feel the smallest flicker of hope. It was a fragile thing, but it was hers. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could heal. Logan, ever patient and understanding, gave her the space she needed, but he never wavered in his belief that she could overcome the darkness. And somewhere, deep within her, Olivia began to believe in herself again, step by step, day by day. The journey would be long and difficult, but it was a journey worth taking. And this time, she wouldn't be alone. A new beginning. The weeks stretched into months, and Olivia's life slowly began to shift. It was as if a small seed of hope had been planted deep within her, and though it had taken time to sprout, the growth was undeniable. The mansion, once a symbol of her uncertainty and distance, began to feel more like a home. Logan's presence, steady and unyielding, was the foundation she had needed to rebuild her life. He didn't push her to open up, but instead, gave her space to find her way at her own pace. And with that freedom, Olivia started to explore the quiet parts of herself she had buried long ago. The days, though still filled with questions and fears, no longer felt like a constant battle. Olivia had found some peace in the simplest of things. She enjoyed sitting in the garden with her daughters, watching them play as the sun bathed the flowers in warmth. She laughed more, spoke more, and the tension that had once gripped her every movement began to loosen, bit by bit. Her daughters, too, flourished. They were no longer the quiet, scared little girls she had met when they first arrived. They were laughing, running, and growing in a way Olivia had never thought possible in such a short amount of time. One morning, as the spring air was still crisp and the birds were singing their songs from the tall trees, Logan invited Olivia to join him for breakfast in the courtyard. It had become a routine, but this time, Olivia felt different. She had gotten up early, for the first time in years, without feeling the weight of anxiety pressing down on her. She had showered, put on a simple dress that made her feel like herself again, like the woman she used to be before life had broken her, and stepped outside with a smile. Logan was already seated at the small table, enjoying the soft breeze and the quiet calm of the estate. As Olivia approached, he looked up, his face lighting up with a warmth she had come to cherish. "You look beautiful today," Logan said, his voice sincere. Olivia smiled, though she still wasn't used to hearing such words. "Thank you. It's been a while since I've felt like me." Logan gestured for her to sit. "It's a new day, Olivia. And this is a new beginning. For all of us." As they ate, the conversation flowed easily. Olivia found herself talking more, sharing small moments of her past that she had long kept to herself. It wasn't the heavy stuff, not yet. But it was the beginning, of understanding, of healing. She talked about her childhood, the simple joys of growing up in a small town, the dreams she once had of becoming someone important. She laughed about the silly things she and her friends did when they were younger, and for the first time in years, Logan saw glimpses of the woman she used to be, the Olivia who had been full of hope, full of life. "You know," Olivia said, breaking a piece of toast, "I used to want to travel the world. I wanted to see everything, Paris, Italy, Egypt. You name it. I thought I could do it all. But somewhere along the way, those dreams got buried under the weight of everything else." Logan watched her carefully, his eyes kind. "I think those dreams are still in you, Olivia. I don't think they're gone. Maybe you just need time to dig them out again." She looked up at him, a mixture of disbelief and hope swirling in her eyes. "You really think that?" Logan smiled gently. "I know that." A silence settled between them, but it wasn't heavy. It was comfortable, like two people who had finally found the space to breathe, to be real with each other without fear of judgment. Olivia looked around the estate, the vast garden, the quiet beauty of the mansion, the life she had found here, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a visitor. She felt like she belonged. Like she had a place in the world again. Over the next few weeks, Olivia began to open up more, not just to Logan but to the world around her. She started taking small steps, returning to the city with Logan to run errands, visiting local markets, even enrolling her daughters in a small school just down the road. She was cautious, always looking over her shoulder, afraid of what might happen if she stepped too far out of the bubble of safety Logan had created for her. But each day, she grew stronger. She learned to trust again. And more importantly, she learned to trust herself. One afternoon, Logan suggested they visit one of the nearby towns for a weekend getaway. Olivia hesitated at first, her mind racing with old fears. What if something went wrong? What if they ran into trouble? But Logan, ever patient, reassured her. Let's just take a drive. We can come back whenever you want. No pressure. Olivia agreed, feeling a flutter of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. The thought of seeing something new, something beyond the mansion, was liberating. For once, she wasn't tied to the past. She wasn't bound by her mistakes or her fears. She was simply a woman, on a journey with her daughters, trying to rebuild her life. They drove through the rolling hills, the landscape changing with each mile they traveled. Olivia looked out at the open road, feeling the fresh air rush through the car as Logan expertly navigated the winding paths. It was exhilarating, this sense of freedom, of possibility. The world, once so large and intimidating, now felt full of potential. By the time they reached the small town, Olivia's heart had lightened. She walked through the quaint streets, taking in the sights and sounds. There was a market with fresh produce, a small bakery with the scent of homemade bread wafting through the air, and a cafe with outdoor seating that promised the best coffee in the area. Olivia smiled at her daughters, who were giggling as they held hands, exploring the new surroundings with the curiosity only children possessed. Logan, noticing the change in Olivia's demeanor, approached her. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "You're doing it. You're living again." Olivia looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and something more, something she hadn't felt in years, hope. "I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I deserved to." "You deserve all of this," Logan replied, his voice steady. "You've worked harder than most, just to survive. But now, you're living. And that's something no one can take away from you." As the day wore on, they spent time at the cafe, enjoying the peacefulness of the town. Olivia had never felt so relaxed, so free. For the first time in years, she wasn't weighed down by guilt or self-doubt. She was just herself. And for once, that felt like enough. That evening, as they made their way back to the car, Olivia stopped for a moment and turned to Logan. "I can't remember the last time I felt this, at peace," she said softly. Logan smiled warmly, his gaze never leaving her face. "Then we've made a good start." As they drove back to the mansion, the car filled with the sounds of her daughters laughing in the back seat, and Olivia couldn't help but feel a sense of fulfillment, of something new beginning, of a life that had been broken, now slowly mending itself. The future, once uncertain, now seemed full of endless possibilities. She didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid to find out. And that was enough. The ultimate sacrifice. The weeks that followed their trip to the small town were a continuation of Olivia's slow, yet steady transformation. Each day brought new challenges, but also new victories. She was finding her footing, her sense of self, and more importantly, she was rediscovering the part of herself that had been buried under years of pain and survival. Logan remained her unwavering pillar, the silent partner who supported her, never rushing, always patient, and always ready to remind her of her worth. But Olivia knew that the real work was within her, that she had to learn to trust herself again, to rebuild her life from the ground up. One crisp morning, as autumn painted the world outside in warm hues of orange and gold, Olivia sat in the living room, sipping tea as she gazed out at the sprawling grounds of the mansion. The mansion had become a sanctuary, but she knew it was time for something more. It was time to truly take control of her life. Logan entered the room, as calm and composed as ever, and Olivia noticed something different in his demeanor. His expression was unreadable, his eyes focused, yet there was a hint of something else, something heavier. He sat down beside her, placing a hand gently on the back of the couch. "Olivia," he began, his voice steady but laced with a slight tension. "I've been thinking." She looked at him, a small smile on her face, though she sensed the weight of his words before they even came. "What about?" she asked, her voice soft. Logan hesitated, gathering his thoughts. I think it's time for you to start building something for yourself. You've spent so long relying on others, relying on me, and while I'll always be here, I want you to find your own way. You've got so much potential, Olivia. So much strength. His words hit her in a way she hadn't expected. She had come to rely on him, to rely on the safety he provided. But now, for the first time, she understood that Logan wasn't just helping her survive, he was pushing her to thrive. The realization brought a lump to her throat. I don't know where to begin, she whispered, her hands trembling slightly. It feels like I've been running from everything for so long that I don't even know how to face it. Logan looked at her, his expression warm yet resolute. You don't have to do it all at once. Start small. Maybe with something you've always wanted to do but never had the chance. Whether it's opening a small business, going back to school, or just helping others who are where you once were. You have the power to shape your future, Olivia. You just need to believe in yourself. His words echoed in her mind, stirring something deep within her. Logan was right. She had been so focused on surviving that she had forgotten to live, to dream. And though the fear of the unknown still lingered, a spark of hope began to ignite within her. But just as quickly as the hope appeared, doubt crept in. Olivia's heart raced as she thought of the challenges ahead. Could she truly rebuild her life? Could she build something meaningful from the ruins of her past? I'll be here, Logan said, as if reading her thoughts. But this is something you have to do for yourself. I believe in you, Olivia. The next few days were a whirlwind of thought and reflection. Olivia spent her time thinking deeply about the future. She revisited the dreams she had once held so dearly, the ones she had let go of when life had become too much to bear. The dream of owning her own small business, of helping other women who had been through hardship like her, the dream of creating a space where healing and growth could happen. She knew it would take time, but she was ready. Olivia found herself making lists, plans, ideas, steps. She began looking at the world through a different lens, one that was full of potential rather than limitations. She reached out to a local women's shelter, asking if she could volunteer. She began taking online courses to learn the basics of business and entrepreneurship. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And with each small step, she felt a little more empowered, a little more like the woman she once was. But just as Olivia began to feel a sense of momentum, something unexpected happened. One evening, while Logan was out for a meeting, Olivia received a phone call that would alter the course of her life once again. Olivia? The voice on the other end was familiar, but strained. It was Olivia's mother, the woman who had abandoned her years ago when she was a child. Mom? Olivia said, her heart racing. What's wrong? I don't know how to say this, but I need your help, her mother's voice trembled. I'm sick. I've got no one else. I don't have much time, Olivia. The words hit Olivia like a punch to the gut. Her mother, the woman who had abandoned her when she was young, now needed her help. Olivia felt her heart twist with conflicting emotions. There was anger, yes, anger at the years of neglect and abandonment. But there was also a strange sense of duty, a deep-rooted feeling that despite everything, she could not turn her back on her mother in her time of need. Where are you? Olivia asked, her voice steady despite the storm raging within her. Her mother gave her an address, a rundown apartment complex on the outskirts of the city. Olivia felt a pit form in her stomach. The decision weighed heavily on her. She could walk away. She could tell her mother she had no obligation to help her. But something within her, something deep, something from the girl she had once been, pulled her in the opposite direction. She knew she had to go. When Logan returned later that night, Olivia was packing a small bag. She had decided. Where are you going? Logan asked, his voice laced with concern. I have to help her, Olivia said quietly. My mother, she's sick. I can't ignore it. No matter what she did to me, I can't turn my back on her. Logan stared at her for a long moment, his face filled with a mix of worry and understanding. Are you sure this is what you want, Olivia? She nodded, her eyes filled with quiet determination. I've made peace with my past, Logan. I'm not the same person I was when I first came here. But I have to do this. For myself. And for my daughters. Logan stepped forward, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. I understand. But remember, Olivia, you don't have to do it alone. You've come so far, and you deserve to keep moving forward. But if this is your path, I'll support you. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes, but she held them back. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. And so, Olivia set off to meet her mother, knowing that in helping her, she was not only offering a chance for healing but also making the ultimate sacrifice, the sacrifice of forgiveness and selflessness. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that her journey, though uncertain, was one that would bring her peace. As she drove away from the mansion, the familiar landscape of the estate fading in her rearview mirror, Olivia felt a sense of quiet strength. She was no longer defined by her past. She had built something new, something solid. And even if the road ahead was difficult, she was ready to walk it, one step at a time, with her daughters by her side, and the knowledge that she could face whatever came next.